Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe. I have never ever done the mid-year book freakout tag, but I'm giving in this year. I'm going to be doing it for the very first time. So this tag was created by Ellie and Chima, and I'll have links to both of their channels down below. First question is to name the best book you've read so far this year. And I have to be honest, that is a very difficult question for me. I've had so many 5 stars this year that choosing my favourite books of the year is going to be a horrific job to do, but I decided to just pick one of my favourites, and that is going to be Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I loved this book. It's a young adult book where we follow our main character Jam, and she lives in Lucille, and no more monsters exist in Lucille. They're supposed to all be gone, but she discovers that there is a monster lurking around, and she employs the help of Pet, who comes out of a painting to help her find this monster and hunt it down. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. The writing in it is just superb. It's on point, it's spot on. It uses metaphor really well in this book because the concept of a monster is a metaphor, so what they're hunting can be several different things. We have a black trans main character who is non-verbal. The representation in this is absolutely fantastic, and it was a joy to read. It was nice to see in a sentient house. It was nice to see parents playing such a big role in young adult, and I really liked the friendship that was at the core of this book as well. I could go on and on with more reasons why you should read it, but I trust that now you know it's fantastic. Then it asks for the best sequel you've read in this year, and I don't feel like I've read that many sequels, but I did really enjoy reading Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the third and the final book in the Daevabad trilogy, and this book was really good because it just ended the perfect way. I have a problem with series endings because I feel like a lot of them don't end in a satisfactory manner. There are quite a few series where I was very disappointed in the ending, but that was not the case here. It wrapped everything up so well. It showed me how the characters had really developed. The ending was so suspenseful. There was so much action happening. So much was riding on these events. I couldn't foresee where it was going to go. I didn't know who was going to survive, who was not going to survive. It was perfect. Perfect ending to a series I really enjoyed. The first one follows Nari, who is a thief, and she performs a ritual to cool down the gods that she thinks is fake. Turns out to be real, and she gets whisked away to a magical world. Doesn't even begin to cover the breadth and the depth of this series, but I entrust that you're going to pick this one up and read it and find it all out for yourself. The next thing is a new release you haven't read yet but really want to, and for me that is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Brigid Kemmerer. I've been wanting to read this ever since it came out. I had it on pre-order. I was very excited. It's the third and final book in the Curse So Dark and Lonely series, but then reviews started to trickle in, and it feels like this is everyone's least favourite in the series. And as I just said, I have a problem with series. I feel like a lot of them end in ways that are unsatisfactory to me, and it's always so disappointing when that happens, and I just feel like this one is going to be a disappointment too because of the reviews, but I will never know until I dive into it and read it for myself, so I've got to give it a go. I just have to push past my worries and anxieties about endings and just get to the book. Then it asks for my most anticipated release for the rest of the year, and I honestly have nothing to tell you. I am not very good at keeping up with anticipated releases because I'm someone who really relies on reviews and people's opinions to know if a book is going to be for me or not. So sometimes I see a book is going to be coming out and then I'm like, oh, I'll hear about it again once everybody buys it and reads it. So I don't actually have anything I'm anticipating at the moment. I usually only anticipate sequels to books that I really liked, like A Vow So Bold and Deadly, and I was anticipating Mr. Impossible, but it's already out and in my hands, so I don't think I have anything to answer this question with. Then it says, what was your biggest disappointment this year so far? And I don't think that means the worst book that you've read. I think it means the book that disappointed you the most because you had high expectations for it. And for me, that is The Fowl Twins by Eoin Colfer. This is the first book in a spin-off series that is about the Fowl Twins, and it's a spin-off of the Artemis Fowl series, which was one of my favourite series that I read for the first time last year. I read all 8 books and I loved each and every single one of them, so when I heard about the spin-off series I wanted to give it a go, but this unfortunately was not one for me. It reads a lot younger than Artemis Fowl does, which surprises me because I thought it would have been on the same wavelength as Artemis Fowl. Yes, Artemis Fowl is also middle grade, but this felt like even younger middle grade. I felt like one of these characters was trying to be, well, a lot of these characters were trying to be rip-offs of characters from the original series, and that's something that really bothers me about spin-off series. If you're going to do a spin-off series, just go into the void, make it different. We will appreciate any references or cameos to the original series, but don't just try and give me the same series but recycled. And I could definitely see which character was supposed to be the Holly, the Butler, the Artemis stand-in, and that very much bothered me. It's something I really don't like about sequel series, and the plot was just meh. It wasn't my favourite thing. So unfortunately I was very disappointed in this book. What was your biggest surprise? And for me that has to be Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I haven't hauled in this cover yet, but spoilers for my future haul. I got the cloth-bound Penguin edition of Crime and Punishment, and I read this back in January. I buddy read it with Mary from Mary Among Stories, and I loved this classic. I did not expect to love it that much. It's been fermenting on my TBR for a very long time before I picked it up, and it was so good. It does the philosophical discussions and thoughts around crime, around punishment very, very well, and also about what justifies crime and what doesn't justify crime. It goes into all of that. It has all of those discussions. It also talks about mental health, and especially the mental health of the criminal, which is not something I just see discussed very much. I just thought it was a very interesting depiction of mental health, of guilt and forgiveness and love and pain, because even though maybe our main character is a criminal, he still has a family, he still has people he loves, he still has people he cares about, and maybe he did the crime in a certain moment, in a certain situation, but does he feel like he made the right choice? It unpacks all of that very, very well. I liked how it used other characters as foil characters, so you can see his storyline reflected in other people's storylines as well, and see if they made the same choices or different choices and what those outcomes were. It was fantastic. I really loved this classic. You know, Russian classics, they're just doing it for me this year. New favourite author, new to you, or debut? And I struggled with this question. I don't typically have favourite authors, and even then I feel like I need to have read more than one book by an author to say that they are a favourite author, because I feel like you just need to read a bit more than one thing, and unfortunately I don't read sequels or books by that author again very quickly. It takes me time to get to another one, but I do have favourite authors when it comes to the romance genre. That's one of my big exceptions to I don't have favourite authors. And even though I haven't read anything else by this author, I think Talia Hibbert might be able to become a favourite romance author for me. We have to see. It's still, you know, a possibility. I'm not entirely sure, but I really did enjoy Get a Life, Chloe Brown. We've got a romance that focuses on a disabled, black, plus-sized main character, and all of that representation was done fantastically, and there is a love interest who is brilliant. He's struggling with his mental health, but you know, he tries to go to therapy and things like that. There's a cute cat involved, there's sibling relationship. It was spot on. Newest fictional crush, and I am someone who gets fictional crushes. However, I haven't had a new fictional crush this year so far. I've been reading a lot of young adult and a lot of classics, and I feel like I don't get my crushes from young adult or classics. I get my crushes from fantasy, but I haven't been reading enough fantasy that I've loved enough to get a fictional crush. But last year I did have a fictional crush, and I did read the last book in this series this year, so I'm counting it, and that is, you know, we're going back to Empire of Gold here. Prince Ali. I love him with my whole heart, and I would marry him tomorrow. That's all you need to know. If he asked me for my hand, I would marry him in a heartbeat. I think in this series, you know, Prince Ali really develops across the course of the books. He develops because he can be quite frustrating at times, but even though you see him develop, you still see his core personality traits stay the same, and they shine, and he's just so... he's so earnest. He really wants to do the right thing all the time, but sometimes he doesn't choose the right way to express it or to show it. I think he's great with the sword. I think he... makes very important sacrifices for the people that he loves. He would be a very good friend, and I think any book crush should also be someone who you could be very good friends with. He's incredibly loyal, which is definitely a characteristic I value a lot in my book boyfriends, so yeah, I love Prince Ali. Newest favourite character, and that one would have to be Binti from the Binti trilogy by Nadia Corafall. Again, not entirely new, because I had read this first book, I think, last year or even the year before. No, last year. I had read the first book last year, but she became a favourite character for me this year because I read the two sequels and absolutely loved them, and I think Binti is very strong. She's very peaceful, like peace is at the core of her body, peace is at the core of her being. But even though she tries to project that peace and keep working on restoring her own peace within her, it can be very hard to do that, and I love seeing her consistently try to do that no matter what life throws at her. And even when life throws violence at her, she still tries to choose peace above everything else. She's struggling with her identity, but she really does her best to show the people that she loves them, that she will take care of them no matter what, and she is just a literal queen. I love Binti so much. A book that made you cry, and I am heartless, so I don't cry when I read at all, but sometimes I like to say I was crying on the inside, internally crying, because books are just so emotionally heavy that I know that if I was a crier, I would be crying. And for that I need to talk about Beloved by Toni Morrison. There are so many moments in this book that would provoke tears in a crying reader because it is absolutely heartbreaking. It's about these two runaway slaves, and it's about what they do after they've run away from slavery, especially this woman who had a baby who has died, and this dead baby is haunting her and haunting her house and her family, and it was a lot. It was a lot to take on. It really delves into their slave experiences, but also can they even move on after what they've experienced? Can they move forwards? And I don't know how to explain it. The writing is absolutely beautiful. The imagery is stunning. It's heartbreaking, it's heart-rending and heart-pounding, but the ending was absolutely perfect. Every single character felt like they were alive to me, that they could walk through the door and I would fully greet them and believe that they existed. And all of these characters were very, very developed. Even the ones where you've only got a few points of view from their perspective felt incredibly fleshed out to me. I think this is masterful writing. There's a reason why this book has lingered around and why it should linger around for many more years to come. The next one is a book that made you happy, and for that I've chosen You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. When I first started reading this one, I was feeling very mediocre about it, but around the halfway mark it made me feel happy. And then it just kept going. I just kept feeling happier and happier and happier the further into the book I got. And by the end I was just smiling so hard. I was even reading in public and I couldn't hide my smile. That's how happy it made me. It's definitely a black joy book, and black joy books always make me happy. They get to me. Black people living their authentic, true self lives. It's the stuff I need to charge me up and fuel me and keep me going. So in this one we follow our main character who wants to get a scholarship to go to the university of her dreams, and one way of you getting a scholarship in this school is running and winning prom queen. However, in the process of running prom queen, lots of things happen and it's much harder than she thinks, especially as she's not one of the popular crowd, so she doesn't think that she can win. And we've also got an LGBT plus main character and relationship featured in this one. It was just perfect. If you want happy vibes, read this contemporary. The most beautiful book you've bought or received this year, and I already showed you my Crime and Punishment edition that I love with my whole heart, but I do have some other books that I think are beautiful. I don't know if these are the most beautiful, but when I was thinking about this question I thought about these ones. So the first one is Legendborn by Tracy Dion, which I have not read yet and I only recently hauled in, but it's got black magic. Black girl magic on the cover, like a black girl is literally doing magic on the cover. That's beautiful to me. And also Burn by Patrick Ness. There is another cover for this book, but as soon as I saw this one, it's the one that I really, really wanted, and Simone got it for me for my birthday. Flames, and the colour of flames is one of my favourite things. Like, flames are beautiful, and orange, like burnt orange, sunset orange is my favourite kind of orange. You can see it in the flames here. There are dragon tails going around and a black background. I love black. I don't know. This is aesthetic to me. This is aesthetic. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I have a lot of books that I need to read by the end of the year. But these are two books that you can especially kick me if I've not read them by the end of the year. The first one is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I just think I'm going to love this one. Other people who have read it have loved it too. Usually I abide by their opinions and I feel the same way. It involves Shakespeare, it involves grief, which strangely enough, grief, I know, they're two buzzwords for me. If anything involves Shakespeare, I'm there. If anything tackles the topic of grief, I am so there. So I definitely need to read this one by the end of the year. And I also need to read Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery by the end of the year. I finished watching Anne with an E with my mum and I loved that TV show. I loved it. I'm sad that it was cancelled and that we don't get any more, but even though season 2 was like not my favourite thing, season 1 and season 3, like, they have my whole heart, they have my whole soul. I loved it. And it kind of threw me back to when me and my mum were younger and we watched the other Anne of Green Gables TV series. I don't exactly know which year it was, but it was the one my mum grew up watching, and then she rewatched it with me when I was growing up, and then we watched Anne with an E together now, and I think we're going to go back and rewatch the other one again together. And I don't know, I'm in the mood to read Anne of Green Gables now. I want to read the actual classic. I know what it's about, I know what it's like. This is a beautiful, like, old edition in a secondhand shop. The pages are yellowed and I feel like that's so aesthetic for when you're reading a classic book. So I'm looking forward to reading Anne with an E. And the final question is to name like a favourite Booktube member, and where do I even start? I honestly have made so many Booktube friends this year who have been so supportive of me and also just so friendly. It's been so nice to really make some very close Booktube friends. I'm gonna miss people out and I don't want to miss anybody out, but for example, Hannah from Snow White Reader, Cara from Wild Book Garden, Victoria from What Victoria Read, Mary from Mary Among Stories. There's just so many people and it stresses me out to give Booktube shout outs. Like I've been thinking, you know, let's get deep here. I've been thinking about doing a Booktube shout out video thing, but then I feel so guilty if I miss anybody out, so I don't know how to do that. Like even that list I gave you of 4 booktubers doesn't cover like 1/10 of the people that I really love, whose channels I'm really enjoying lately, and I just don't know how to do it. If you've got any suggestions, let me know, because I don't want to leave anybody out, but I feel like it's impossible to get everyone. I don't know. Anyway, please let me know in the comment section down below what has been your favourite book of the year so far, and if your favourite book of the year is too hard, give me 3 books that you really enjoyed this year so far. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards, Excelsior.